Hello, my name is Angela Searcy. I am a P20 student, and this assignment is a qualitative study presentation for ADM 730 with Dr. Teresa Clark. We will cover several different areas during the presentation: the introduction, literature review, discussion of data, collection instrument, conducting interviews, and planning for and analyzing the data, and then lastly, expectations for future findings and application of conclusion. So, the introduction. I selected the topic of the impact of parent engagement on P20 students because I am a daughter of two educators. My mother and father were educators, and they were very involved in my education and supporting me throughout my bachelor's, master's, and now my doctoral degree. So I was interested in finding out if other students pursuing their doctoral P20 degree from Murray State had similar backgrounds with parents that were encouraging them throughout their school career to get to this point. And so that is my introduction as to why I wanted to pursue this topic. And now I will move to the second area of the presentation, which is the literature review. I reviewed several different articles that were a little bit different. Each article, I'm going to say, had a different flavor or a twist on parent engagement that I hadn't really been familiar with prior to reading some of this literature. The traditional article, I'll call it the traditional article, was by Henderson and Barla, and it spoke to parent engagements, the impact of parent engagement on school success, student success in school. And in that article, they really talked about common themes of parent engagement, such as it helps with academic achievement. Parents that are engaged with students have fewer students with attendance issues and behavioral issues, and students with engaged or involved parents are more likely to pursue post secondary opportunities. And so the first article that I'm calling traditional really was in alignment with a lot of articles I've read previously, which focus on the strong impact of parents being involved in students' education, having a positive impact on their academic success as well as pursuit of post-secondary opportunities. In the second article, it was focused on parenting styles. The researcher Christina Halls focused on the authoritative parenting style, having a strong impact on reducing negative behaviors and therefore increasing the likelihood for school success, because we know that behavior can be a barrier to a student's progress. So that article really shed some light on how a parent raises their child, having an impact on later success with pursuing post-secondary options. The third article that was included in the literature review was really focused on a student's perspective. A lot of times when looking at parental engagement, we're looking at the factors, but we're not really hearing what the students think about it. So in this particular article, excuse me, the middle school students and high school students share their perspectives on whether parent engagement, their parents being involved in school, really motivates them to achieve in the classroom and in the area of academics. This study was really surprising because some of the students said no and some said yes, and their perspectives were that they could achieve whether their parents were involved and visible at their events, or if they weren't. So they felt like they could achieve either way. The author of the next article really talks about the relationship or the bond that parents have with students, with their children, impacting later success. So, whether or not they were visible in the school building, whether they went to parent teacher conferences, literacy nights, or math nights, really did not have a significant bearing on their future academic success. It was that relationship that was explored. And so, after the article was reviewed, I really thought about our P20 students and that parental impact that may have may not been there in the traditional sense. These articles that were reviewed had variables that the researchers all considered when evaluating the impact of parental involvement. It's not as cut and dry as if parents show up at school events, that student achieves. If they show up, that's one way that they may be spending quality time or bonding with them, which focuses on the connections between students and their parents. And that is really explored in Katova's article that was written in 2024. And there is a connection between student achievement and parents that have a strong bond with their child, those still children having success in the classroom. But there are some that did not, even with that. Even with parents spending time and bonding with them, in some cases, there were variables to consider and mixed results. So there were indirect positive impacts on students that may not have been just your traditional. Excuse me. So the next area that we're going to look at is the data collection instrument. And I selected interviews as the instrument for me to gather information. And the 4 key areas that I looked at were early impact, parent engagement in school, parenting characteristics, what kind of parenting skills, what kind of personalities the parents have, how they parented, and then the probing questions. And so those are the 4 different areas that I looked at. And then I wanted to ask questions to P20 students that I felt like were related to the articles that were reviewed as well. So I wanted to find out the students' perspective, and then I wanted to find out if those students really felt they achieved academically because of their parents. Did they have better school attendance? Did they have good social skills? And so I really wanted to break those down, the things that were included in the literature review, and make sure they carried over to the types of questions that I asked P20 students. So with the data collection tool, I asked students, what were your parents' expectations regarding your academic achievement or their academic achievement? I asked P20 students, how would you have achieved success without an engaged parent? Another question was, do you feel that you would have been successful if you did not come from a single family home? If you came from a 2-parent household, would you have been more successful than a single parent household? Those were a few sample questions that I asked. And then I asked how your parents' level of involvement impacted your academic achievement or impacted their academic achievement, as well as how did your parents contribute to your success as a P20 student. So those are 4 sample questions that were asked in the study that that students were able to answer. And that leads us to our next part of the qualitative studies presentation, which is the plan for analyzing the data. And so there are a few things I'll do to analyze this data. First, I'll assign each subject a letter and number, and I'll kind of code their information in that way. And I will gather all of my notes and I'll review the responses and I'll look for common themes or common answers. So if a couple of the subjects gave me the same answer for the same question, and I'll also look and see if their answers were completely different. So I'll look for consistencies as well as differences in the responses. And then I will look at tools for analyzing qualitative data that are already out there. One of the tools that I looked at was called the Max QDA, and it's a software that is designed for data analysis for qualitative studies. So I will look at that and see if there's anything else that is approved by Murray State University by the P20 program that is applicable for qualitative study for looking at organizing that data and making sure that the results are or the findings are organized and done with integrity. And next, I will look at the expectations. We'll look at the expectations for future findings. So, after all the data is organized, all the literature has been reviewed, and the questions have been answered, the expectations for future findings, that question is basically looking at do I think that there's that parents are impactful in the areas of student achievement, in the areas of improving attendance, or do I believe that parents do have or do not have a significant impact on P20 students? And I believe the findings are that parent engagement does have an impact on student achievement, especially for P20 students, but I will have to explore and really look at what that impact is. If it is academic achievement, then how it occurs. What is it about the parents that made their students want to achieve? Was it the quality time, the bonding? Was it showing up at school events? Or what piece? Because in looking at the research, there are lots of variables, and then there are indirect benefits. But I'll look for, I expect to find some common themes, findings that relate to parent engagement being impactful for student achievement, because most people perceive it to be very impactful. So I have reviewed the literature on parent on the topic of the parent impact on P20 students, and I've discussed the instrument, which was the interviews, and I've talked about the plan that I have for analyzing and going through the data, and the expectation for future findings, and then the application for conclusions. So I think the next steps would be to interview more subjects, and it would be to analyze the data. Prior to that, really looking at the questions and having fewer questions for the students to answer, and making sure that all the questions are appropriate and specific to the study. Thank you.